You set 3 alarms. You promise yourself tonight will be different. You even put your phone across the room. And then morning hits like a freight train, and somehow you're still scrambling, stressed, and 20 minutes late before your day even starts. Sound familiar? Here's what nobody tells you about mornings. They're not actually 1 in the morning. That's the lie we've all been sold. We've been looking at this completely backwards. While everyone's obsessing over their morning routine, downloading meditation apps, and trying to become a 5 a.m. person, they're missing the real problem. Your morning chaos was created 12 hours earlier, and you didn't even notice it happening. Let me paint you a picture. It's 10:47 p.m. Sarah's sitting on her couch, phone in hand, scrolling through videos she doesn't even care about. She's not entertained. She's not relaxed. She's just scrolling. Her brain feels like static. She tells herself, just 5 more minutes, but she's been saying that for 40 minutes. Tomorrow's going to be brutal because she has an early meeting, but that feels like a future problem. Right now, in this moment, putting down the phone feels impossible. Fast forward to 6:30 a.m. Her alarm screams. Her first conscious thought is dread. She hits snooze not because she needs more sleep, but because she needs more time to mentally prepare for what's coming. When she finally drags herself up, she's already behind. No time for breakfast. Definitely no time for that workout she promised herself. She's making decisions in survival mode, grabbing whatever's closest, reacting instead of choosing. Here's where it gets interesting. Sarah thinks she has a morning problem. But watch what actually happened. The chaos didn't start when the alarm went off. It started the night before when she lost control of her evening. And this pattern, this exact sequence of events, is playing out in millions of homes every single night. Think about this for a second. We spend thousands of dollars on morning solutions. Coffee makers that brew automatically. Workout programs designed for busy people. Productivity apps that promise to organize our chaos. But we're trying to fix the symptom while ignoring the disease. The disease is evening entropy. It's what happens when you drift through your night without intention, making tiny decisions that feel insignificant in the moment, but compound into morning disaster. Every mindless scroll session, every "I'll just watch one more episode," every task you push to tomorrow, every glass of water you don't drink, it's all collecting like debt that comes due the moment you open your eyes. Let me show you how this actually works on a neurological level, because understanding this changes everything. Your brain has this system called the prefrontal cortex. It's basically your decision-making headquarters, the part of you that plans, resists impulses, and acts according to your long-term goals instead of your immediate urges. But here's the catch. This system runs on a limited battery. Scientists call it ego depletion, but you can just think of it as willpower energy. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every choice you navigate, it all drains this battery. By evening, most people are running on fumes. You've been making decisions all day. What to eat, what to work on, how to respond to that annoying email, whether to speak up in the meeting. Hundreds of micro choices that individually feel like nothing, but collectively exhaust your decision-making capacity. So, when evening arrives and you're trying to decide whether to prep tomorrow's lunch or scroll Instagram, whether to go to bed or watch another episode, your brain doesn't have the juice to choose the harder right thing over the easier wrong thing. This is why you can wake up with rock-solid intentions, and by evening, you're a completely different person. Morning you is full of willpower. Evening you is running on empty. And here's what most people miss. If you try to make important decisions about tomorrow when you're in this depleted state, you're basically asking a drunk person to plan a road trip. The judgment just isn't there. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Your evening doesn't just affect your morning through decision fatigue. It actually programs your next day at a biological level. Your body operates on what scientists call a circadian rhythm, your internal clock. This system is constantly trying to predict what's coming next, so it can prepare your body accordingly. It decides when to release cortisol to wake you up, when to produce melatonin to make you sleepy, when to ramp up your metabolism, all based on the patterns you've been showing it. When you go to bed at wildly different times, when you're staring at bright screens right up until you collapse, when you eat late or don't eat at all, you're essentially scrambling this prediction system. Your body doesn't know what to prepare for. So when morning comes, it's caught off guard. Your cortisol doesn't spike when it should. Your brain doesn't fully wake up. You feel groggy not because you didn't sleep enough hours, but because your body wasn't ready for you to be awake. Marcus learned this the hard way. He's a software developer who couldn't understand why he felt exhausted despite sleeping 7 solid hours. His Fitbit said his sleep was fine, but every morning felt like climbing out of quicksand. What he finally realized was that his bedtime bounced around by 2 to 3 hours, depending on how deep he got into coding projects or gaming sessions. His body was trying to run a wake-up protocol based on mixed signals. It was like showing up to the airport not knowing if your flight leaves at 7 a.m. or 10 a.m. Sure, you're at the airport, but you're stressed and unprepared either way. So, what do? This is where the evening ritual comes in, but probably not the way you're thinking. This isn't about bubble baths and herbal tea, though if that's your thing, great. This is about creating a systematic shutdown sequence that sets up tomorrow's success before tomorrow even starts. Let's break this into a framework. I call it the 3 zones principle, and it completely changed how I think about evenings. Zone 1 is decision zone, and it runs from roughly when you finish dinner until about 2 hours before bed. This is when you still have some mental gas in the tank. This is your window to make tomorrow's decisions today. Not during tomorrow when you're rushed and stressed, but right now when you can think clearly. Here's what this looks like in practice. Take 10 minutes and actually plan tomorrow. Not just glance at your calendar. Actually visualize walking through your day. What are you wearing? What are you eating for breakfast? What's the first task you're tackling when you sit down to work? If you have a tough conversation or meeting, what's your opening line going to be? The reason this works is simple but powerful. When you make these decisions now, you're making them with a full tank of willpower. Tomorrow, you just has to execute, not decide. You've eliminated decision fatigue before it even starts. You're essentially your own personal assistant, setting up future you for success. I started doing this 6 months ago, and the difference is absurd. I lay out my workout clothes. I set out my breakfast ingredients. I write down my top 3 priorities for the next day. Takes maybe 12 minutes total. But that 12 minutes saves me from at least an hour of morning mental spinning where I'm trying to figure out what to do while simultaneously trying to wake up. Zone 2 is wind down zone, and this runs from about 2 hours before bed until 1 hour before bed. This is where most people completely drop the ball without realizing it. Your brain needs a runway to sleep. You can't be scrolling through work emails, watching intense Netflix dramas, or having heated text conversations and then expect to flip a switch into sleep mode. It doesn't work that way. Your nervous system needs time to downshift from sympathetic mode, that's fight or flight, into parasympathetic mode, that's rest and digest. Here's the thing nobody wants to hear. Screens are absolutely destroying this transition. And I'm not just talking about the blue light, though that matters too. I'm talking about the dopamine roller coaster. Every notification, every swipe, every new piece of content is giving your brain a little hit. You're essentially doing tiny lines of cocaine for your reward system. Then you wonder why you can't fall asleep even though you're exhausted. Let that sink in for a second. Rachel was a graphic designer who would work on her laptop right up until she got into bed. She'd close the laptop, turn off the light, and lay there with her mind racing. Deadlines, client feedback, design ideas, all of it swirling with no off switch. She thought she was being productive by working late. What she was actually doing was priming her brain to stay in high alert mode, and then getting frustrated when it couldn't instantly relax. What changed for her was creating a hard stop 1 hour before bed. No screens, no work talk. She'd do something analog. Sometimes she'd sketch for fun, not for work. Sometimes she'd organize something physical, like her closet or a junk drawer. The activity didn't really matter. What mattered was giving her brain a clear signal that work mode was over and sleep preparation had begun. And here's what most people miss about this zone. You're not trying to force relaxation. That's actually counterproductive. When you tell yourself, I need to relax right now, you create pressure, which is the opposite of relaxing. Instead, you're just removing the things that activate your stress response. You're creating absence, not presence. The relaxation happens naturally in that space. Zone 3 is the launchpad zone, and this is the final hour before bed. This is where you're literally constructing the launch pad that tomorrow's rocket will lift off from. Everything you do in this hour directly determines your morning trajectory. Start with your environment. A cluttered room creates a cluttered mind. I'm not saying you need to Marie Kondo your entire life every night, but taking 5 minutes to reset your space makes a massive psychological difference. Dirty dishes in the sink when you wake up? That's a micro stress hit before you've even had coffee. Clothes all over the floor? That's visual noise that fragments your focus. Clean counters, clear desk, made bed ready to be unmade again. These small things create a sense of order that your brain craves, especially in the morning when it's most vulnerable. Then there's the physical prep. Hydration is huge, and almost everyone gets this wrong. Your body loses about 1 liter of water while you sleep through breathing and sweating. If you go to bed dehydrated, which most people do without realizing it, you're waking up in a deficit. Your blood is literally thicker, which means your heart works harder, which means you feel more fatigued. Drink a glass of water. Set another one on your nightstand for when you wake up. This alone can change your morning energy by 30%. Temperature matters more than you think. Your body needs to drop its core temperature to fall into deep sleep. If your room is too warm, you'll sleep lighter and wake up groggier. The sweet spot for most people is somewhere between 65 and 68 degrees. I know that sounds cold. Get an extra blanket. Your sleep quality will improve, which means your morning alertness improves. But here's where it gets really interesting. The thing that ties all 3 zones together. The real power of an evening ritual isn't just about tomorrow morning. It's about breaking the cycle of reactive living. Most people spend their entire lives in response mode. Something happens, they react. An email comes. They respond, they feel tired, they reach for coffee, they feel bored, they grab their phone. It's an endless chain of stimulus and response with no intentionality. An evening ritual is your circuit breaker. It's the one time each day where you step out of reaction mode and into creation mode. You're not responding to what happened today. You're creating what happens tomorrow. That shift from passive to active, from reactive to proactive, it fundamentally changes your relationship with your own life. Think about this. When you wake up scrambling, you're starting your day by responding to the panic of being late. That sets the tone. Your entire day becomes a series of reactions to things that are happening to you. But when you wake up to a day you already designed, you're starting from a place of control. You're the author, not the character. That psychological difference compounds throughout your day in ways you can't even measure. Let me show you what this looks like when it all comes together. It's 8:30 p.m. You finish dinner. Instead of immediately gravitating to the couch and your phone, you spend 10 minutes planning tomorrow. You look at your calendar. You've got a presentation at 10 a.m. You decide what you're wearing, something that makes you feel confident. You decide what you're eating for breakfast, something with protein that'll sustain you. You write down the one thing that would make tomorrow feel successful, nailing that presentation. You even visualize yourself delivering it calmly and clearly. Now it's 9 p.m. Wind down zone begins. You shut down your laptop. You put your phone on the charger in another room. You pick up that book you've been meaning to read, or you have an actual conversation with your partner or roommate, or you just sit and think. Radical concept, I know. Your nervous system starts to downshift. The constant input stream stops. Your mind begins to clear. 10 p.m., launch pad zone. You spend 5 minutes resetting your space. Dishes done, counters clear, tomorrow's clothes laid out. You drink a glass of water, you brush your teeth, you set your room to 66 degrees, you get into bed, and instead of scrolling until your eyes burn, you're actually ready to sleep. Not forcing it, just ready. Then morning comes, your alarm goes off. But instead of dread, there's clarity. You already know what you're doing. You already know what you're wearing. You already know your first task. You're not making decisions from a place of fatigue. You're executing a plan you made when you had the mental capacity to make good choices. You're not scrambling, you're flowing. That's the difference. That's what an evening ritual actually does. It doesn't just fix your morning. It changes the entire trajectory of your day by changing the starting conditions. Your morning doesn't fail because you're not disciplined enough. It fails because you're trying to build a house on a foundation you never laid. The evening ritual is the foundation. The morning routine is the house. And you can't build a stable house on unstable ground, no matter how good your architectural plans are. So, here's your challenge, and I mean this as a genuine experiment, not a guilt trip. Tonight, right after you finish watching this, don't just nod and move on. Actually try one zone, just one. Pick the zone that feels most doable. Maybe it's spending 10 minutes planning tomorrow. Maybe it's putting your phone away an hour before bed. Maybe it's just resetting your space before you sleep. Try it for 3 days, just 3. Because here's what happens. Once you experience one good morning that came from one intentional evening, you won't want to go back. It's like tasting real food after eating processed junk your whole life. The difference is undeniable. Your mornings aren't failing because morning is hard. They're failing because evening was easy. And the beautiful irony is that once you make evening harder, morning becomes easier. You front load the effort when you have capacity, and you reap the rewards when you're most vulnerable. That's the game. That's the shift. Your tomorrow is being created right now, tonight, in the hours before you sleep. The question isn't whether you will have a morning routine. The question is whether you'll build the evening that makes that routine possible. Everything you need is already here. You don't need new apps or programs or systems. You just need to stop treating your evening like the leftover hours after your real day ends and start treating it like the launch pad for what's coming next. Because that's exactly what it is.